Aminu was born without sight. From the day he came into the world, his eyes saw only darkness. The women in the village whispered that he was cursed. His father, a poor farmer named John, looked at him with anger instead of love. Aminu's mother, the only person who truly cared for him, died during childbirth. After her burial, the house grew cold, and so did John's heart. People said Aminu was useless, but they didn't know what he could feel. When the wind blew, he could hear more than just the rustling trees. He could hear secrets. He could hear voices soft, far away, and full of warning. He never told anyone. Who would believe a blind boy who said the wind could talk? When Aminu turned 12, things got worse. His father no longer fed him every day. Sometimes he was locked outside in the cold Harmattan wind. One morning, John dragged Aminu deep into the bush and tied him to a tree. He said nothing. He just left. Aminu cried for hours, calling for help, but no one came. The nights were long and full of strange sounds. But the wind kept speaking. It told him not to give up. It told him that danger was coming, not just for him, but for the whole village. That night, Aminu listened, and what he heard made his skin grow cold. He had to go back and warn them. Even if they hated him after 2 days, Aminu chewed through the rope with his teeth. His hands were bloody, and his lips were dry, but he walked. He followed the sound of the wind back to the village. When he reached the edge of the huts, the people gasped. "The blind boy lives?" someone cried. His body was weak, but his voice was strong. "There will be an attack. Men with guns. Tonight, hide your children. Lock your doors," he said. The crowd went silent. Then laughter broke out. Some said he was mad. Others said he was a demon. The chief, a proud man in red cloth, ordered Aminu to be chained again. "Let the spirits deal with him," he spat. That night, the sky was full of stars, but peace did not last. Just before dawn, gunshots rang out. Screams filled the air. Men in black clothes stormed the village, shooting, burning huts, and dragging people into trucks. Aminu, still chained near the bush, heard everything. He screamed for someone to free him, but the only reply was fire and death. When the morning came, the village was silent. Bodies lay everywhere. The chief's palace was burned to the ground. Smoke filled the air, and then footsteps. Someone came limping toward him. It was a girl named Mary, bleeding from the arm. She unlocked his chains and collapsed. "You were right," she whispered. Aminu carried Mary into the forest, one weak step at a time. His feet burned from the hot ground. Her blood stained his shirt. They hid under a tree for 2 days. He fed her leaves and prayed the wind would protect them. The wind told him where to find water. The wind told him when danger was near. When Mary woke again, she cried. Her family was gone. Her younger brother was taken by the gunman. Aminu said nothing. He just held her hand. In that moment, he knew this gift was not just for warning. It was for saving. The wind had more to tell him, and the truth about his power had only just begun. Mary didn't leave Aminu's side. Though she was still weak, she helped him find food in the forest. She tied cloth around his wounds and whispered thanks as she cried. "Everyone thought you were lying," she said one night, staring at the stars. "Now the ones who laughed are dead or missing." Aminu didn't speak. The wind had been silent all day. He feared it had left him. But as the Harmattan breeze blew again that night, he heard it. Soft whispers like music in the trees. "Go north," it said. "Truth is waiting there." But what was the truth? And why was it hiding in the north? The next morning, Aminu and Mary walked north. The sun burned their skin, and their stomachs were empty. Along the dusty road they saw deep tire marks. Trucks had passed, dragging people away. Mary's eyes filled with tears. My brother was in one of them, she said. Aminu squeezed her hand. He didn't know what to say, but the wind whispered again. They are not far. They followed the tracks until sunset. Then, in the distance, they saw an abandoned hut. With smoke rising gently, Mary rushed ahead. Inside, they found an old man sitting by the fire. His eyes were white. I've been waiting for you, he said. The old man's name was Peter. He too was blind. You think your gift is new, but it is old, he told Aminu. I once had the wind's voice too, but I failed it. Aminu listened quietly as the man spoke of ancient spirits who choose one blind child every generation. You were born to hear what others cannot, Peter said, but your gift has a price. Peter warned that not all heard the wind used it for good. There are others like you, twisted by power, he whispered. Then he gave Aminu a necklace made of dry feathers and cowries. When the wind is silent, this will protect you, he said. But your journey is not over. That night, Aminu dreamed. He was standing in the village, but everything was ash. Smoke rose and shadows danced. He saw his mother holding a baby, singing. When he reached out, she vanished. Then a voice called out, not the wind, but something darker. You're not ready. Go back. Aminu woke up sweating. Mary was gone. Panic gripped him, but then he heard a scream outside the hut. He rushed out, barefoot. A man had grabbed her. One of the raiders. He had escaped the group and was hiding in the bush. Aminu grabbed a stick and swung blindly. The wind screamed through the trees, guiding his hand. The man fell. Aminu had struck his head. Mary was safe, but the man was dying. He bled on the ground, groaning. Aminu stood over him, shaking. Why did you attack our village? He asked. The man spat blood. Orders from the palace, he muttered. Then he stopped breathing. Peter helped them bury the body. That night, around the fire, Peter spoke again. Now you see, child. The danger is not just raiders. It goes deeper. The palace, the chief, even the army. They all know something. And they fear your gift. Aminu didn't sleep. The wind blew gently that night. It whispered one word. Justice. Aminu sat outside the hut, clutching the feather necklace Peter had given him. He could still hear the dying raider's words. Orders from the palace. It didn't make sense. Why would the chief allow an attack on his own people? Unless he had something to hide. Peter sighed. Years ago, a boy with your gift warned the village about a fire. No one listened. The palace called him mad. Then the market burned, just as he said. They banished him. I was that boy. Aminu's heart beat faster. Why didn't you stop them? Peter lowered his head. Because I was afraid. But you, child, you must be brave where I was not. The next day, Aminu and Mary said goodbye to Peter and walked east. Peter gave them water and a bag of dried nuts. Follow the wind, he said. But beware of silence. It means something watches you. The road was long and full of bones. Burned carts, broken shoes, and even a door lay in the dust. Mary cried quietly as they walked. My brother must have passed this road, she said. He must have. Aminu touched the ground. The wind whispered again. He lives. He turned to Mary and smiled. He's alive. That small hope lit a fire in them both. But night was coming, and so was something else. As the sun fell, they saw the glow of a fire far ahead. Mary pulled Aminu behind a tree. Through the branches they saw a camp. Men in uniform, guns leaning on logs, laughter and meat roasting. Soldiers, Mary whispered. Should we ask for help? Aminu shook his head. The wind blew sharply through the trees and hissed. No, they are not what they seem. A man stepped out of the tent. Mary gasped. That's the chief's son, the same chief who called Aminu a demon. The soldiers were not there to protect. They were part of the attack. Suddenly, Aminu felt something cold press against his head. A gun. Well, well, a voice said. Look who we have here. The soldier tied their hands and dragged them into the camp. They were spying, he said. The chief's son walked over, eyes full of disgust. The blind boy who cries about spirits? He laughed. Why do you keep surviving? Aminu said nothing. The wind was gone. The night felt heavy. His gift was silent. They tied Aminu and Mary to a tree. In the morning, we'll deal with them, the chief's son said. But that night, while everyone slept, a small figure crept toward them. A boy no older than 10. Mary gasped. Jacob. She whispered. It was her brother. He had escaped the cages and stolen a knife. He cut their ropes. Run, he said. Run now. They ran deep into the bush, holding hands, hearts pounding. Gunshots echoed behind them. Then, from the sky, a flash of lightning struck a tall, dry tree ahead. Fire exploded, lighting the whole area. The soldiers stopped chasing. The flames blocked the path. Aminu stood still. The wind returned stronger than ever and shouted in his ears. This fire is yours. Your path is protected. Mary and Jacob stared at the burning tree. It was as if something or someone was watching over them. Aminu looked up at the dark sky and whispered, Thank you. But he knew this was only the beginning. They had escaped death once again, but the palace still had secrets, and Aminu would uncover every single one. They walked for hours after the fire. Jacob was tired and hungry, so they found shelter under a large rock near a stream. Mary boiled leaves to make bitter soup. Aminu sat alone, his ears listening to the wind and water. Why are they hunting us? Jacob asked. Mary looked at Aminu. Aminu whispered, Because I heard something I was not supposed to hear. He turned his face toward the wind. This is not just about me. It's about something they are hiding. Something very big. The wind whistled, like a flute. It spoke of land stolen, secrets buried, and a king afraid of the truth. The answers were in the palace, and that was where they must go. The next day, while searching for food, they met an old hunter named Simon. He wore a leather hat and walked with a limp. Children shouldn't be alone in these parts, he said. The forest is angry. When he learned Aminu was blind, he looked shocked. A boy with no eyes should not hear what you hear. Simon took them to his small hut and gave them roasted yam. At night, he sat by the fire and told them of the past. Years ago, the palace signed a secret deal with outsiders. They allowed attacks on nearby villages in exchange for money and guns. Aminu's heart grew heavy. Who made the deal? Simon looked around. The king himself. That night, Aminu dreamed again. He stood in a throne room. A man sat on a golden chair, wearing a white mask. Around him, children cried in chains. Blood ran under the carpet. The man spoke, but his voice was not human. Do not come here, boy, it said. You are not ready. Aminu woke with a shout. Sweat covered his face. Mary held his hand. Was it the wind again? She asked. He shook his head. No, this was different. Something evil is watching us now. It knows we're coming. But even fear could not stop him now. He had seen enough. It was time to face the palace and the mask. The road to the palace town was dangerous. Soldiers patrolled the roads, looking for anyone who looked suspicious. Simon gave them old clothes and a wheelbarrow. Pretend he's a beggar and you're his sister, he told Mary. Let the boy play sick. Mary pushed Aminu along the road while Jacob walked ahead. They passed several checkpoints. One soldier looked at Aminu and spat on the ground. Stupid blind boy, he muttered. But they let them pass. By nightfall, the great walls of the palace town appeared. Aminu felt the wind again. It whispered, "The truth is close, but danger walks beside you." Inside the town, they found a quiet woman named Grace who let them sleep in her store. She gave them bread and asked no questions. The next morning, Aminu sat outside listening. Then suddenly, all sounds around him went quiet. He couldn't even hear the wind. Then a man walked by. People greeted him, but Aminu felt nothing, no footsteps, no breath, no presence. "That man," he whispered, "has no shadow." Mary looked confused. "Everyone has a shadow." Aminu turned pale. "Not him." The wind returned suddenly and screamed, "He is the mask. Run." The truth was near. But so was death. The palace stood tall and wide, covered in red paint and golden carvings. Guards stood with guns at the gate. Aminu sat by a corner, his blind eyes facing the walls. He didn't need to see. The wind was speaking again. "Behind those walls, your answers live. But so does your greatest enemy." Mary found out that the palace held open court every 3 days. People were allowed to come with their complaints. "We'll sneak in with the crowd," she said. Aminu nodded. His hands shook, but he kept quiet. If the man with no shadow was really inside the palace, they would need more than luck. They would need the wind to scream again. They entered with a crowd of women begging for food and old men asking for land. The chief's son stood by the gate in fine clothes. He didn't recognize them. Aminu held Jacob's hand tightly, heart beating fast. The crowd moved slowly into the main hall. The king sat on his throne. Rich cloth, crown, smile like a mask. Aminu couldn't see him, but he could feel the cold. The wind went silent again. It was afraid. Something wasn't right. Suddenly, a loud voice called out, "You! Girl in the back! Come forward!" Mary froze. A guard pointed at her. "What's your name?" he asked. She looked at Aminu. "Don't speak," the wind finally whispered. "Not yet." Mary gave a fake name. The guard stared, then laughed. "You look like someone," he said, and let her go. They moved closer to the throne. Aminu stood still, pretending to beg. Then the king's voice rang out. "Blind boy, come." The room went quiet. Aminu stepped forward slowly. The king leaned forward. "They say you hear the wind," he said softly. "Is that true?" Aminu nodded once. "Good," the king whispered. "Then tell the wind to bring you home, because you will not leave this place alive." Aminu smiled, though his heart shook. "I don't need to leave," he said. "I came to see your shadow." The room gasped. Guards grabbed them all, Aminu, Mary, and Jacob, and dragged them down into the palace basement. The king stood over them. "You know too much," he said. Then he laughed. "But you know too little. Do you think the wind will save you now?" Aminu felt the wind again. It was weak, but it pointed to the left, behind a wooden wall. "There's a room," he whispered. The guards paused. The king's smile dropped. "Silence him," he barked. But Jacob had already slipped free. He kicked the wall. It cracked. Behind it was a door, a steel door with ancient signs. The king screamed, "You don't know what you're doing." But it was too late. They broke into the hidden room. Inside were boxes of documents, photos, and recordings. Mary picked one and froze. "This is my father," she said. "He was a palace guard. They told us he died in a raid." Aminu held Another paper. It showed payments, weapons, maps of villages all signed by the king. A screen flickered in the corner. A video played. The chief, the king, and men in suits signing deals with foreign men. "This is it," Aminu said. "This is the truth the wind wanted me to hear." The door slammed behind them. The king stood there, face dark. "Now you've seen everything," he said. "And now you all must die." The king's guards stormed into the secret room. Mary grabbed the documents, stuffing them into her bag. Aminu stood still, listening. The wind rushed through the cracks in the stone, wild and fast. "Now, child," it cried, "strike now." Aminu grabbed a wooden torch from the wall and swung it toward the guards. One man screamed as fire touched his sleeve. In the confusion, Mary smashed a jar of oil onto the floor. Jacob lit it. Flames burst to life. The guards shouted. Smoke filled the room. "Run!" Mary screamed. They bolted through the side passage as fire swallowed the truth they had uncovered. But had they saved enough? The side tunnel led down twisting and tight. The fire followed them, crawling behind like a beast. "We can't outrun it," Mary gasped. Then they saw it. A broken wall leading out into the night. But the drop was. High far below, a river flowed fast and wild. "Jump?" Jacob asked. Aminu held his breath. "The wind says jump or die." They jumped. The water hit like stone. Cold, fast, and loud. It pulled them under. Aminu couldn't breathe. Mary grabbed his shirt, kicking hard. Jacob held his sister's arm. At last, the water pushed them out onto the rocks. They coughed, shaking and soaked. They were alive, but barely. And the king now knew he had enemies who had seen too much. They found shelter in an old fishing hut near the river. That night, while Mary dried the papers by the fire, Jacob shivered with fever. "He drank too much river water," Mary said. Aminu sat beside him, holding his hand. "You'll be fine," he said softly. But the wind was silent. By morning, Jacob wasn't breathing. Mary screamed and shook him, but he was gone. Aminu felt pain deeper than any wound. A boy who had saved them all, who gave them hope, was now just a memory. They buried him under the tree outside. Mary cried until her voice was gone. Aminu stood in silence. The wind finally spoke. "This is the price." One of the papers Jacob had grabbed was a letter signed by the king, sealed with blood. It gave direct orders to the chief. "Allow the attack. Blame the rebels. We need fear to control them." Aminu's fingers traced the letters slowly. This is everything." Mary wiped her eyes. "Then let's give it to the world." They knew the local radio house was in the next town. If they could reach it, the truth could be shared. The king would be exposed. But there were dangers on every road, and they had no more time to grieve. "Let his death mean something," Mary whispered. Aminu nodded. "It will." They walked in silence through dry fields and thorn bushes. Every step forward was a fight against fear. Aminu kept hearing whispers behind them. "He's coming," the wind warned. "He knows where you go." By evening, they saw the tower of the radio station in the distance. But as they got closer, gunshots rang out. They dropped to the ground. A truck rolled past. It was the chief's son alive, angry and hunting. Mary clutched the letter tightly. Aminu whispered, "We can't go through the front. We need another way." They turned toward the back path, hearts pounding. The wind blew against them now, heavy and hot. The storm was coming. Aminu and Mary crept behind the radio station under the cover of night. There was a broken fence and a rusted side door. The building stood silent, its lights dim. "Is anyone inside?" Mary whispered. Aminu tilted his head. The wind was quiet again. It was not a good sign. They knocked on the door. No answer. Then, a voice whispered, "Who are you?" A man in an old uniform stepped out. His name was Mr. David. He was a technician who had worked at the station for 20 years. When Mary showed him the letter, his face turned white. This is a death sentence," he said. "If we air this, they'll come for all of us." Mr. David led them inside. He dusted off the microphone and turned on the transmitter. The small studio lit up. "We don't have much time," he said. "Say what you need to say." Mary cleared her throat. To everyone listening, the palace lied. The king allowed the attack. We have proof. They took our families. They killed our people. Aminu leaned in. I was called cursed, a blind boy who hears the wind. But the wind told me the truth. And the truth is what we give you now. Mr. David read the letter aloud. He pressed the red button. The message went live all over the region. Radios crackled. People listened. And the palace shook with anger. Within minutes, the radio station was under attack. A truck crashed through the front gate. Gunfire exploded in the night. Mr. David yelled, "Go! I'll hold them off." Mary hesitated. "We can't leave you." But the old man shoved her toward the back. "You've done your part. Now run." They escaped through a broken window and ran into the bush. Behind them, the station burned. Aminu stopped once to listen. The wind was wild now. "They're coming fast," he whispered. "We need to split up." Mary refused. "No, we stay together." But it was too late. Flashlights cut through the trees. Voices shouted. The hunt had begun. They ran for hours through the forest, but the soldiers kept closing in. By sunrise, they reached an abandoned mining site. Old machines and metal drums lay in rust. "We hide here," Aminu said. They crawled into a hollow pipe and held their breath. The chief's son walked into the clearing with 4 armed men. "They're close. Search everything," he barked. Mary shook with fear. Aminu clenched his jaw. The wind was still. No help. No voice, just silence. A soldier kicked the drum they were in but moved on. For now, they were safe. But how long could they run? The truth was out, that they had become targets. Later that evening, while resting in the forest, a group of strangers appeared. They were dressed like villagers but moved like fighters. "You're the blind boy," their leader said. His name was Mr. John, once a soldier, now a rebel leader. "We heard the broadcast. You did well, but you just made the king desperate." Mr. John explained that the palace had someone worse than the chief's son, a man named Daniel, assassin with no mercy. "He's not like the others," John warned. "He doesn't chase. He finishes." Aminu nodded. "Then we finish this first." It was time to stop running. Night fell fast in the forest. Aminu sat by the fire with Mary and Mr. John's rebel group. The wind returned at last, slow and heavy. "He is near," it said. "He walks without sound. He kills without breath." Aminu's chest tightened. The assassin, Daniel, was coming. Mr. John handed Aminu a stick carved with strange signs. "We use these to sense danger," he said. "But you already have something better, your gift." Mary loaded a small pistol. "We can't run forever," she said. "It ends now," Aminu nodded. "If he wants me, let him come. But this time, I'm not afraid." The rebels set a trap. They lured the assassin into a narrow path between the hills, where there was only one way in and one way out. Aminu stood at the center alone, pretending to be weak and lost. The wind whispered nervously, "He watches you already." Be still. From the shadows Daniel appeared. He was dressed in black, face covered, eyes sharp like a hawk. No sound, no breath, no heartbeat. He moved like smoke. Before Aminu could react, Daniel threw a knife, but it missed. A net shot out from the trees. The rebels charged, but Daniel was too fast. In seconds, 3 men were down. Screams filled the air. Mary shot, but he vanished. "It's not enough," Aminu whispered. "This man is death." Daniel caught Mary and pushed her to the ground. "I don't kill girls," he said coldly. "But I will kill your voice." He turned to Aminu. "The king wants you dead. But me? I just enjoy the silence after death." Aminu stood still. "The wind said you walk without sound, but even silence breaks." He stepped forward. The feather necklace on his chest glowed. Faintly. The wind rose around him fierce and wild. Leaves flew. Branches cracked. Even Daniel stepped back. Suddenly a loud snap. A branch broke above. A heavy trap swung down from a tree. It slammed into Daniel's back, sending him crashing. He groaned and tried to rise, but Mary hit him again. This time, he stayed down. With Daniel captured, the rebels tied him and left him under guard. Mr. John clapped Aminu on the shoulder. "You're not just a boy. You're a symbol now." Aminu sat beside Mary. "I'm tired of being a symbol. I just want peace." The next day, they returned to the ruins of the radio station. Surprisingly, the signal tower still worked. Mr. David had survived and was hiding nearby. He smiled when he saw them. "You're back just in time. The world is listening now." "Mary, read the king's letter again." Aminu spoke into the mic. "You tried to kill the truth, but the truth has a voice. And it is loud." The signal went everywhere. Far away, in the Golden Palace, the king sat alone. The broadcast echoed in the halls. His ministers rushed in, shaking. "Sir, the people are rising. They know. They want justice." The king slammed his fist. "Then send everything. Burn the forests. Bring me the blind boy's head." But it was too late. The people had seen the truth. Villagers marched. Soldiers stepped back. The chief's son had vanished. The palace gates were no longer guarded. And Aminu? He was no longer just a blind boy. He was the storm that the wind had whispered about. And he was coming. Aminu stood before a growing crowd. Villagers, rebels, and even former palace guards gathered in the forest, ready to march. Word had spread far. "The blind boy who hears the wind has spoken the truth," they said. "And the king is afraid." Mr. John raised his fist. "Tomorrow we take the palace." Cheers rang out. Aminu felt the wind rush past his face. It whispered, "You are close. But do not trust every voice." He frowned. "What does it mean?" Mary asked. Aminu paused. "It means there's still betrayal nearby. The path to justice would not be easy." The wind warned of blood. Again. That night, as the rebels prepared to march, something felt wrong. Aminu couldn't sleep. The wind spun like a storm, whispering fast. "He is here, among you." Aminu sat up. "Who?" He whispered. Suddenly, a loud blast tore through the forest. Fire. Screams. The rebels scattered. A group of men opened fire from the tree's former allies turned traitors. One of them was Simon, the old hunter who once helped them. "You should have stayed hidden," he growled. Mary pulled Aminu behind a log. "We've been ambushed," she cried. Mr. John was shot in the leg. Aminu clenched his fists. "Why?" Simon laughed. "Because power is more tempting than truth." Smoke burned Aminu's lungs. He crawled through the fire, searching for Mary. Then silence. A sharp pain struck his side. A bullet had grazed him. He fell behind a tree, gasping. Blood soaked his shirt. The wind screamed, but its words made no sense. He was slipping. Mary. Found him. Stay with me, please. Her voice trembled. Aminu could barely hear. The world was spinning. I don't want to die, he whispered. You won't, she said. Not tonight. She dragged him through the forest until they found Mr. John, bleeding but alive. They all collapsed together. The camp was gone. Many had died. But Aminu had survived. Barely. Amin. You faded in and out of sleep. In his dreams, he heard voices, familiar ones. His mother's song. Jacob's laughter. Peter's whisper. Then, a voice stronger than the rest. Do not give up. You are the last wind. If you fall, truth dies with you. He woke with a gasp. The sun was rising. Mary sat beside him, her face covered in tears. You were almost gone, she said. For 2 days you slept. Aminu sat up slowly. His body ached. Then we don't have time. The king thinks we're dead. That's our chance. Mary nodded. We finish this. For Jacob. For everyone. With new strength and quiet rage. Aminu stood before the remaining rebels. The ones who still believed. We've lost friends, he said. But the truth is still alive. And it must reach the palace steps. They disguised themselves as traders and slipped through back roads. The people helped them, farmers gave. Food, women offered shelter, even children stood guard. The wind was with them again. Forward, it whispered. Your voice is the storm. By sunset, they stood at the edge of the palace town. The golden walls waited. Inside, the king held on to power. But outside, a blind boy carried truth in his hands and fire in his heart. Disguised in dusty robes and wide hats, Aminu and the rebels entered the town with carts of fruit and baskets of cloth. The streets were tense. Soldiers patrolled every corner, but the people watched in silence. Whispers followed them. The blind boy is alive. The wind tugged at Aminu's ear. The gates are weak. The people are ready. But fear still rules them. Aminu turned to Mary. We must make them believe again. She nodded, then stood on a crate and shouted, He's here. The boy who spoke the truth lives. The market froze. A soldier raised his gun. But the wind howled and the people rose. In moments, the crowd swelled. Angry voices filled the streets. Justice, they shouted. Down with the lies. The palace guards tried to push them back, but too many had joined. Even some soldiers dropped their weapons and stepped aside. Aminu walked through the crowd, guided by the wind. His body still ached, but his voice was steady. We are not afraid, he said. The palace cannot silence the wind, and it cannot silence the truth. Mr. John limped beside him, pistol hidden under his robe. The gate is ahead. Once we cross, there's no turning back. Aminu nodded. Then we cross. The golden gates of the palace burst open. Aminu stepped into the courtyard, flanked by rebels and villagers. The king stood at the top of the stairs, crown tilted, eyes full of rage. You again, he growled. You filthy cursed child. Mary threw the blood-signed letter at his feet. Your lies have ended. Everyone has heard them. The king's guards raised their rifles, but then paused. Around them, more guards lowered theirs. Some stepped back. Some even knelt. You think words can destroy me? The king hissed. Aminu walked closer. No, not words, but the wind, and justice, and the ghosts you buried. The people flooded the palace grounds. The chief's son tried to flee, but was caught by a group of mothers whose children never came back. They dragged him to the courtyard, weeping and shouting. "He took our sons." The king stood alone. The ministers had vanished. The throne behind him looked smaller now. "I did what I had to," he shouted. "To keep order, to protect the kingdom." Aminu stood before him, unshaken. "You protected only yourself." Then in front of all, the wind screamed. It tore through the courtyard, lifting dust into the air. "He is no king," it howled. "He is a thief of lives." And the people listened. The crowd surrounded the king. He tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. The guards did not help him. His power had crumbled like old stone. Mary stood by Aminu, silent. Mr. John gave the final word. Let the people decide his fate. The king was led away, not by swords, but by truth. The golden palace doors swung open. The wind circled him gently. "It is finished," it said, "for now." But Aminu knew truth was never finished. Not in a world full of silence and secrets. And as long as he heard the wind, he would never stop listening. The palace was quiet. The sun rose over broken gates and dust-covered floors. People moved through the halls, cleaning, crying, and remembering. Aminu stood in the throne room with bare feet, feeling the cold ground under him. He touched the golden chair. "I don't want this," he whispered. Mary stood beside him. "No one wants power," she said, "but someone must guide the truth." Aminu turned to the people. "We don't need a king. We need a voice. We need justice, not crowns." The crowd nodded. For once, silence meant peace. Weeks passed. The villages that were burned began to rebuild. Homes were made of mud and palm. Again, children laughed. Women sang. The rebels returned to their farms. Aminu walked slowly through his old village. Many homes were gone. Some people bowed when they saw him. He shook his head. "I'm not a prophet," he said. "Just a boy." Hugh listened. At his mother's grave, he knelt and whispered, "It's done, Mama. The fire didn't take me. It gave me light." At night, Aminu still dreamed of Jacob, Peter, and the others who died. Their faces came and went like smoke in the wind. Sometimes he wept. Sometimes he smiled. Mary asked, "Do you regret it?" Aminu said softly, "No. I regret only that they didn't live to see what they helped build." He carved Jacob's name into a tree near the river. Then Peter's. Then his mother's. One by one. "They're not gone," he whispered. "They are the wind now." With the king gone, a new council was formed: elders, youth, market women, farmers. Aminu sat among them, not as a ruler but as a voice. They asked for his advice on land, safety, and peace. He didn't always have the answers, but the wind helped him choose words that calmed the room. "You gave us hope when we were afraid," one elder said. "Now you give us wisdom." Aminu smiled. "I'm still learning," he replied. Years passed. Aminu grew taller. His face became known across the land. But he still walked barefoot with his carved stick and feather necklace. He visited schools, helped build wells, and trained other blind children to listen, not just with their ears, but with their hearts. "You don't need eyes to see," he told them. "You only need truth." Some called him teacher. Some called him the last wind. But to Mary, he was still just Aminu. The wind stopped speaking. Minu stood under the tree where Jacob's name was carved and waited. Nothing came. Not a whisper. Not a voice. Only the sound of birds and leaves. He sat for hours, wondering. Then he smiled. "Maybe I don't need it anymore," he said. "Maybe others can carry it now." The silence. was not fear this time. It was peace. Mary found an old letter hidden in the palace ruins. It was from Aminu's father. It read, "If you live, forgive me. I was afraid, but I see now. You were never blind. I was." Aminu said nothing for a long time. Then he burned the letter and let the ashes fly. "I forgive you," he whispered, "but I will never forget." On the anniversary of the uprising, the people gathered to dance, sing, and remember. They built a statue not of a king, but of a boy holding a stick. His head raised to the wind. Mary stood beside Aminu. "What do you hear now?" she asked. He smiled. Laughter, joy, a people unafraid. The statue was named The Boy Who Listened. Aminu dreamed one final time. He was walking across a golden field. Jacob ran beside him. Peter waved. His mother waited under a tree. She took his hand and kissed it. "You did well, my son," she said. When he woke, he was crying. But the tears were warm, gentle, full of light. Years later, children still spoke of him. Blind, brave, the boy who heard the wind. Mary wrote his story in books and songs. Villages passed it down by firelight. Whenever harmattan blew across the land, mothers would whisper, "Listen, maybe Aminu is speaking." And in the wind, you could almost hear him say, "Truth never dies. It only waits for someone to hear it again."